Hey party people, this is Jeremy for MVM, and today I'm here with the Kickstarter preview of Aeolis, which is published by Dreamcraft Games. And this is a 1 to 7 player game, and a cooperative game at that, where you are building a civilization or a kingdom building game, and you're trying to stop incoming threats, plagues, plunder from the seas, incoming raids, unrest amongst you, all kinds of stuff, and invasions. But you also have some things like blessings that come along the way that will help you out and help you gather resources. But it's up to you, the queen, because this is in a patriarchal society, the merchant and the philosopher and some of your troops to work together to handle these threats over the course of 10 rounds. Now, this game also has some scenarios which I have not played. I'll kind of talk to you about those, but it also has some other interesting roles outside of those core 4 that you get to choose from. And we're going to talk about those as best as we possibly can. I'm going to try to give you an overview of all the interesting things that go on in this game, because each role is asymmetric and it has its own contribution to the whole gameplay. So let me not hold you too long, but I'm going to try to make sure I cover everything so you can make an informed backing decision. Let's get to the boards. All right, party people, quick setup here for Aeolis. You're going to lay out the big civilization board, right? And you're going to also roll for 2 placements of plague tokens. So you roll D4, D6, wherever those land you, that's where you're going to place plague tokens. I'll touch on that later. You're also going to have a scenario. You can choose a scenario, you can do an endless run, or you can do a 10-round non-scenario situation. And what you're going to do is shuffle all these different decks of cards. You're going to have your blessings, which are wonderful and positive, your curses ages 1 and 2, which of course are bad and even worse. And then you also have your invasions 1 and 2, and also a deck of heroic events which you can use for challenging to reach a certain level of tech during the game. You are going to play those, and if I've only played non-scenarios, so you're going to put those in a certain order, or you're going to draw certain ones each round based on the table that they have. They also have different level settings, so you can kind of use that as a buffer to decide what you want to do. Now for the player setup. Every game of Aeolis must have these 4 roles. It doesn't matter what player count you're at. I played solo. I had to play with these 4 roles, and it doesn't matter if you're playing with 2 or 3. You still kind of have to choose which ones are going to take on at least these 4 roles. You have the queen, you have the merchant, philosopher, and Magi or Hoplite. And the Hoplite or Magi are going to be, you know, your choice, because you're going to have to decide who's going to defend this place and who's going to fight for you. But you're going to place the minis that apply to whatever character out on the board. You also at their specific buildings, and then you also have, everybody's going to have 1 coin, except for the merchant's going to have 3, and then you're also going to have 1 trained worker. So the queen's going to have a worker, but the other ones are going to have their specialized workers. And that's basically the setup for the game. Each character has their own specific items that they need to add to their boards, for dice pools, for wheels and all that other kind of stuff. But I'm going to go ahead and skip those details and go into the more in depth as we get into the gameplay. So let's go ahead and talk about the gameplay. A round of Aeolis has 4 phases, and no matter what player count you have, everybody's doing things simultaneously to walk you through it. So the phases are setup phase, player phase, enemy phase, and conclusion phase. In the setup phase, it's pretty simple, and the queen has a lot of upfront work, but I'm going to just kind of explain the phases as an overview. You are going to move the round marker forward. You're going to roll for resources that are being built across all your buildings and that you have set up across the land. You're also going to draw an event for that round, or maybe 2 based on what the scenarios say. And then everybody's going to train their workers, which costs 1 coin, but everybody does it at the same time, so that you can move forward and figure out who you have to use for this round. That's the setup phase in a nutshell. The player phase is where players will actually take their own actions on their own board, doing the duties that they have for that time. Weaving spells, gathering resources from exploring, attacking, studying researching different items. All that kind of stuff will happen during that round. And then the enemy phase is where things will activate. Now, you may have things that are already in the active pool of events that are going on that are left over, but now you're going to actually activate the one that you drew, or the ones that you drew at the beginning of the setup phase. So now you know they're coming into action, which is part of the game to know how to prepare for these things, because sometimes you can cast a spell or do something diplomatic to stop it from happening with the queen. But that's pretty much that. And then at the conclusion phase, all the resources and all the workers and possibilities that you can put together, you get all these things together in a conclusion phase, and then you deal with them. What am I going to do? What am I going to give who? And are we going to give coins to this person? We're giving these resources to that person. That's all to be negotiated during that time to prepare for the next round. And that is a round of Aeolis, but we're going to get real deep into these initial 4 characters at least, so you get an idea of like what the roles are and how big this game could be potentially if you really dive into it. So let's talk about the one and only, the big true decision maker, the Queen. As a Queen player, you have a lot of responsibility. First and foremost, you have the final say in how things usually go in the game. But you are also the person that produces workers for everybody else. And with the help of other people gathering resources for you, whether it's a combination of wheat, meat, or fish, you will be able to produce more workers. And the more workers you produce, the more structures and workers you can produce for everybody else to have as well. But the other major component of that is having to build structures. Now, each round you'll produce 1 wheat and 1 wood, but there's also stone, and the combination of the workers, stone, and wood will produce different buildings across the board. And there's different resources where different spots go. They'll show you on the board where those go, so you match them up and place them wherever you want. You want to be aware of the plagues that may come out on the board, so you don't put them adjacent and you have to roll and worry about them spreading. But it's really important that you figure out what the relationship between you and the philosopher on how the kingdom is built. So let's now talk about the philosopher. The philosopher has a ton to do in this game because they are going to contribute to how this is shaped. They're going to research all the tech in the game, and when they research that tech, these tiles will become available to them, to the Queen player, and the philosopher player will hand them over and basically say, hey, these are the options that we've opened up because I've researched agriculture or masonry or education or philosophy or all these different types of things. But it also opens up different tech for different people. So they can open up foreign trade for the merchant. They can open up different types of troops for the hoplites. They can open up all kinds of different types of things for different characters, but that's all the research tech. And when they're upgraded, they become an architect, which goes even further. I don't even know what all these things are. I couldn't even find it in a book. I'm assuming they're stretch goals, so definitely a lot more to unlock here with the architect. And boy, oh boy, do they have just a lot of stuff they can do. And they even deal with blessings that are across the board. So if they have to travel out and get one of those blessings, you can pay the cost and get some of the the money back or the tech back, and skip a lot of steps on the evolution board because you do have to go down the board in a certain way based on how much research you have available. So much going on in this role here. But there's also another way to do some things around here, and that is by trade. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at the merchant. You know what it is, merchant life, the master of the coin, right? So what the merchants do is they basically control the resources. You're going to roll a d4, you're going to roll this kind of thing over here like that clockwise, depending on what the number is, and then you have an option to roll it back or right like that, kind of one. You can do one kind of alter, which I like. That's really interesting. And then what you do is it gives you a chart of, resources that cost 1, 2, or 3 for this round, or you can sell for 1, 2, or 3 gold this round. And then you also have one that you can donate. And whatever you donate, it's actually going to boost your morale. And that morale number is added to your dice rolls for the hoplites and all the other units that do the fighting. So it's a really interesting mechanism that goes on there. And these can be upgraded. When you upgrade to the merchant, to the level 2 merchant market, you're going to have other rarer resources there as well that will help you. And mainly these ones are the crystals. That's what you want. You want all these crystals that are going on in here because that will help you with Magi character. See, they all kind of chain together. But that's the role of the merchant. And speaking of combat, since we talked about that morale, we're going to talk about the hoplites. All right, hoplites are going to do all the kicking butt in the game, and what they're going to do is use their speed, and all the characters that have minis have speed, I should say, to move across the board and attack all these incoming threats, these invasions, and all different types of things, or just anybody who they need to fight off. But what they're going to do is when they get these hoplites, they are going to attack and roll a d4 plus how many of these they have, plus the morale that they get from their merchant. As you can see, this is important. They all tie together, and then they will fight off the threat. Now, there are also upgrades that they can get by transmuting things into the resources they need, or not, shouldn't say transmuting, but also producing the resources or transmuting them as well. And that will actually help them fight off specific threats that are very, very much reliant on having better equipment to fight. Now, through advancements with the Philosopher, you can also produce troops that give you the ability to fight from distance. Or you can also produce types of troops that allow you to move across the map faster. So as you can see, just that alone, those three, the Queen to produce the workers, the Philosopher to produce the technology, and the Merchant to keep up the morale, all make it so your hoplites, your horsemen, and also these archers are ready to go and as powerful as possible. Isn't that interesting? Let's go ahead and take a look at one more other option, and that is the Magi. Lastly, we have the Magi. Now this, I could keep going on this one forever, but there is huge potential on this one here because she controls a lot with this little deck right here. She starts with all different color gems that represent spell colors, and you are moving these around these circles. Now when you get a specific amount in a circle, you can cast that spell according to what cards you have available in your hand at the time. You make it down here to the white area, you can double that number. So what happens is she has these spell cards in here, and they have a top and a bottom. When you cast that spell, and these can be attack spells, they help you deal with events, help people with rerolls, all kinds of stuff. You will cast that spell based on the number that is on there if you had that required number. But you also have to roll a D100, and if you get a certain number, below a certain number, you also mess up the spell. And when you mess up the spell, you actually get a bad thing that can happen at the bottom instead. Really, really interesting character. She can be upgraded as well too to a more powerful version of herself. So yeah, there's a really cool character, and there are so many of them. I'll probably show a picture here at the bottom, but I don't want to dwell all day on that stuff because there's huge potential with each one of them and how they interact. All right, party people, final thoughts here on Aeolis. And let me tell you something, this game is going for something big. You're talking about all asymmetrical roles, fully cooperative Civ game, or kingdom building or kingdom defense type game. It's kind of like a mesh of all that. But the waves of what are coming are totally unpredictable. You have no idea. It could just be weather. It could just be the plague. It could just be a combination of that and an invasion. And you even have challenges that you can take on. And there's a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of conversations along the way that need to happen, and distribution of resources that need to happen each round, and who's more important right now, who needs to cure the diseases, where are all the workers going to go to? Are we going to just build? You know, and you're hoping for some good rolls of luck from the sea where they bring back stuff. Hopefully things don't come there that are attacking them, or your city, and you got to protect your city, your kingdom. So it's like there's a lot of stuff going on, and I think that's where the excitement of Aeolis is, that interaction and like the thematic choices and the conversations you're having, and who's going to get what and do with what. But the Queen will make the final decision. So hopefully this helps you make an informed back and decisions. There's going to be a lot of stuff about scenarios and more things, and even some stretch goals. You may have seen some stuff from the stretch goals in here as well. But I can never tell you what to do with your money. I want to thank Dreamcraft Games for sponsoring this video, and I want to thank you, party people, for your time. Feel free to like and subscribe. You can ask questions in the comments below, and take care, party people. You have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining us on MVM.